Hello, Mary Mead. So I want to review a book. The book I want to review is this one, Yoga for Curvy Girls Guide by Carmen Reeves. I have bought two books about basically yoga for overweight people, and this one was the first that arrived, so I read it first. I have been wanting to get into a yoga practice to basically shape up a little bit. So this book definitely is in the Mac yoga class. By that I mean it's a westernized yoga. You will not gonna find a lot here about the original in the system. You will not find any Hindu philosophy, any really, it's slightly mentioned, but yeah, and the book states it directly. It's not about that. But that's fine by me, because really what I was looking for is something a light form of exercise, as I want to get in a little bit better shape. So did I get what I was looking for? Well, yes and no. Okay. What this book contains is basically some sun salutations, and then a short list of various forms of problems you might be having, and basically yoga programs that will address those programs if done regularly. And she has chosen easy poses for the most part. What I wish she had more of was basically how to do these poses, basically alternatives to these poses, because that's really one of the things that are important when it comes to yoga specifically for overweight people, instead of just getting a book for basically basic yoga poses or yoga for beginners or something like that, is that when you are overweight, not only do you have bits and bobs in various places that can make it hard to get into some poses, but some things are basically your body weight makes some poses difficult. Like, for example, that one there. No, it's not happening, because I weigh 129 kilograms. That's 260 pounds, I think. But no. And while she says, oh well, but put some pillows here or there, or basically push your belly fat out of the way with your fingers, that's all well and good, but there should be more about this, because that's just mentioned as an afterthought. And while that's sort of the whole point of getting a book, particularly for people who are overweight, she do use a lot of time on the positivity, though, and all this on, I think that she comes from a bit of a different perspective. While she do recognize that sometimes belly fat can get in the way, and boobs, not to mention boobs, she does have a good idea for handling some things when it comes to boobs, but still, there's too little about those practical advice. And she seems to think that the only reason why you don't just take a regular yoga class if you're overweight is that you are embarrassed about your body and don't want to be seen by others. But really, that's not my problem. I do realize that that's a lot of people's problem. But for a lot of us, the thing is, we need something to basically make as close a proximity to these poses as possible, while keeping in mind both basically that we go in and out in different places than at in person, but also that there's just so much more weight to lift, that some of the various lifts and such where you support your entire weight on one arm, unless you are very well toned and extremely strong under all that fat, that's not gonna happen. It's just too heavy. And she doesn't add enough practical solutions. On the other hand, things I do like is that she has, for the most part, these yoga programs are doable. When I'm looking at the illustrations, they are doable. And so that's good. And she says that if you come to a pose that aren't doable, just do the child pose and replace the one that you couldn't do with that. And that's fine. That makes that it's a practical guide. I can do this. I can use this book, do those programs, and start an exercise program with that. This is also a book, there's a lot of copy pasting. Basically, for example, for the sun salutations, you go through them, and then there are 2 or 3 of them that are repeated twice. And then she has the entire description and the picture again exactly the same way. And for the most part, that is fine, but you could have just said, well, see this pose, and then just had a decent index in the back, so it would be easy to just find that pose. That would have been cleaner, and then she could have fit some bit more information in the book, but it's clearly just space saving. And also for the drawings, for example, okay, here you have the cat pose. But she doesn't have the downward version of the pose. You could say that one is that, but it doesn't really show it very well. So also she just repeats the same drawings, even when there's several elements to the pose she has, and the pose is repeated through the book several times. She has the same pictures, so that can be a bit annoying. For the most part, though, the descriptions are really good. It's easy to understand what it is she is meaning. And also, the descriptions along with the drawings makes it fairly simple to understand what it is you're supposed to do. It's only a couple of poses where I'm wondering, what does she mean? For the most part, this works very well. I also like that the drawings are actually plump. A lot of these books that are various things that are supposed to be for overweight people, they still have the drawings and illustrations between people. But here, the drawings are actually plump, and I like that. As for the language in the book, for the most part, it's very easy to read. This is a very quick read. As you can see, the lettering is very, very big. So I read it in a couple of hours. And of course, there's a lot of illustrations, so you're not going to spend a lot of time, but you don't need it. This isn't a book you pick up to sit there and read forever. It's basically, you have one practical program in the sun salutations that might be a thing that takes short enough of time that it could be a daily thing. And then there are some basically practical things, what I would call spells in that, because it's energy manipulation. It's a natural form of remedy. So yeah, let's have a look at the index. We have an introduction, then we have chapter 1, Yoga 101, everything you need to know, which basically quickly goes through yoga, what it is. What is yoga, styles of yoga, the philosophy of yoga, the 5 main principles, and the benefits of yoga. This basically is a short section on only a couple of pages that says just completely basically what yoga is. Then you have chapter 2, 5 easy ways to get the most from your yoga practice, which talks a little bit about breathing and such, but I don't think she goes deeply enough into it. Breathing is extremely important for yoga, and she doesn't really go very deeply into how to do it. It's basically just breathe deeply. Then you have keep an eye on your expectations, don't push through the pain, tackle your unique challenges, breathe properly and concentrate. Fine enough. Then you have chapter 3, start practicing sun salutations for yoga success. Then you go through the poses. Chapter 4, troubleshooting yoga for winter blues and depression, which is basically some poses that will help you, basically a short yoga program that will help you with the blues and light depression. Troubleshooting yoga for better sleep, which will help if you have insomnia. Troubleshooting for weight loss, which pretty self-explanatory. Troubleshooting yoga for period pain, I'm gonna try that one, and it's also pretty self-explanatory. Then we have a gentle 5-minute fix yoga, which I really like. I really like this 5-minute program because it is really a 5-minute program, and I think it can be really relaxing. You come home from a stressful day and just use 5 minutes on that. I think can be very beneficial. Then we have yoga and the future, where to go from here, which is where do I go from here? Do I have to join a class? How to choose a class? Finding the right teacher and choosing your style. This goes a little bit about when you have been working with this book for a while, how do you go further? Then you have a thank you and a word from the publisher. It does what it sets out to do. Basically, is it a great beginner's guide? No. Like I said, there are some lacking things that I feel that as a beginner I would like to be told more about. But it will do the job. Basically, I feel that with this book I can get started. And that's really the main point of a beginner's guide now, isn't it? So it does what it sets out to do, but I don't think there is enough here that it can be that it needs the For Curvy Girls guide, because it doesn't go into enough details on what do you do for alternative poses. It's just and if you can't get into it, just change the pose to fit you. Yeah, but how? One thing I also noticed is that there are some spelling errors here. No, don't get me wrong here. I usually, when somebody makes a spelling error, I'm the last one to comment because I make a lot of spelling errors. But when it is in a published book, and there's this much of it, can be a problem, and especially since sometimes it completely changes the meaning of the sentence being written. So that, for example, there's one there which says, check that your knees are directly over your hips. And I'm looking at drawing, what? The hips are the highest, definitely. So I'm thinking, she has just changed those around, so it's basically check that your hips are directly over your knees. But there's a lot of these things here where what is written, it doesn't make any sense because of spelling errors. And this is a small publishing house. It's basically a self-published company that this author has made. And it looks like it. This is something I would expect to get from a Lulu book. It's basically, there has not been read enough done enough proofreading. It feels very rough. It feels like a draft. Rather than basically, it feels like something I would read on a web page or from a Lulu book, not something that I buy over Amazon as a finished, completed book. On the other hand, it's not very expensive. I think I paid $10 or something for it, and it will get me started, so I feel that I get my money's worth. I'll give this book 6 out of 10. It's not bad, but I do believe there are better yoga for beginners guides out there. So I'm looking forward to look at the other book I bought, which is the same category, Yoga for Fat Bitches. So we'll see what I think about that. And that is my review of Yoga for Curvy Girls by Carmen Reeves. I hope you have enjoyed this review. Have a great day and blessed be.